here's the deal, is that a lot of you guys that are listening, is you thought, if I can just get to being married, once I get married, all my problems are solved. Fred, in the way you thought that, what happened?
Oh, I really thought it was going to be great. As a matter of fact, I thought I was God's gift to Brenda. I had grown up, I was valedictorian, and I was class president, and I was, athlete of the year, and it just goes on. And then when I went to college, I studied a lot about marriage and relationships, and every girl I ever dated, the parents would say, oh, now he's a keeper, you ought to get him. See, and so when I got married, I thought I was going to be a great leader, perfect in every way, and I thought that Brenda would be this great wife because she's been raised as a Christian. I thought we had it made. But you have to understand, man, there is no guarantee at all, because life is guaranteed. The only guarantee you get is that it's going to be a steamroller, and it's going to steamroll a lot of the dreams that you have. What happened to us is I married Brenda, but just 5 months before that, her dad died, and that created a whole wave of grief. And then when I tried then to take her away from home, married her and take her home to Des Moines, her mom was in such deep grief, Brenda felt guilty to leave, and so she wanted to go home every weekend. On top of that, she was working in a new job that was just a dismal working environment. She had been raised in a church her whole life. Now she's in a city with no church, no friends, no connection. And then she's married to a guy that turns out has a horrible temper. I used to break holes in the wall just for effect and just to be theatrical, just to make her cower, just to make sure she would do the things I would want her to do in my great leadership skills. So we were in this spot where Brenda was just feeling rotten, and then my family didn't like her. And so we were getting phone calls, every other night. It's like the bombers in World War II coming over and flattening Berlin. I mean, my family, either one of my two sisters, my mom would call and holler about how rotten Brenda was and why do I love her more than them, and just on and on. And it's a small apartment. She could hear everything they were saying, even though she wasn't on the phone. And it was a very, very, very painful time. And in the last analysis, what happened was things started to crumble. And in spite of all the things that looked good at the beginning, I remember going into a Valentine's card shop early on in our marriage, and I walked in and I started flipping through the cards. And the more I flipped through the cards, the more of a sick feeling I got, because every statement that I read on those cards sounded so romantic and so connected and intimate, and I knew I couldn't give any of them to her with any kind of integrity at all. And so by the time I flipped through every last Valentine card, I couldn't find one that matched up with our relationship, and I walked out of the place with tears in my eyes, just knowing how far things had sunk. And then it wasn't too long after that where Brenda came into the kitchen one day. I was sitting there. She sat down. She said, I really don't know how else to say this, so I'm going to tell it to you straight. She said, my feelings for you are dead. And it was in that moment that I suddenly realized completely where things had fallen to. And as a person from a broken home, that all I wanted was to have a great marriage. It was the oddest thing, but all those swirling emotions from 5th grade when my mom and dad broke up just came swarming in, and I was feeling this, what am I going to do, what am I going to do? And it was for just day after day after day. And after about 2 weeks, she was at work one day, and I just stepped up to the refrigerator and had opened it and gotten a glass of milk. I had it in my left hand, and I had shut the door, and again, a wave of emotion flooded through, and I started crying, and I just lowered my head. What am I going to do? And it was at that point that I just made a decision, and it's like Shannon had said how important decisions are. I remember I had this glass of milk in my hand. I had my finger like this, and I said, God, I don't care how much gravel I have to eat. I am never going to get a divorce. And I just made that statement. Now, what that decision did was for the first time engage me in a different attitude towards my marriage. I mean, I had always thought it was going to be a happily ever after thing where because of my so-called greatness and because of her great upbringing, we would get together and everything would smoothly go forward. What I discovered was there's a great deal of effort, sacrifice, and giving that has to happen in marriage, to the point of eating gravel if I had to, because I wanted to make sure it worked.